Let's not do that.
Hey! Let go and move back.
Okay.
Terry is cycling into Shelby Springs when a police car rams him off his bike. He's told to stay on the ground while a second cop arrives. The first officer reports a pursuit, though Terry knows that's more than an exaggeration. He's cuffed and patted down, and while the second officer runs Terry's ID through the system, Terry verbally resists the first officer checking his backpack for weapons. The second officer notices a tattoo on Terry's arm, which has him admitting that he's a veteran. Still, the first officer continues the search and finds something concealed in a paper bag. Terry doesn't want it opened, but when they decide to detain him and call in an extra unit, he finally agrees. Inside is a load of cash. Terry confirms it's $36,000, insisting it's not drug money. $10,000 of it is bail for his cousin, and the rest is for a truck they plan to use for work. But he stresses he needs to be at the courthouse before 5 o'clock. His cousin is in for possession, and after a pause, the officers decide they'll let Terry off with just a warning for the traffic violation, but they're confiscating the money, claiming they believe it's drug currency. If he resists, they warn, he'll face charges of felony evasion and conspiracy. Terry explains he sold his car and cashed out his stakes at a restaurant, but the officer insists he has to fill out paperwork that will be sent back to him in 30 days because he's being sued for possessing drug money. If he chooses not to fight it, they'll win by default and he won't hear from them again. If he does try to fight, then they'll come with a warrant and put him in jail. Either way, they're not open to any other negotiation. After being released from the cuffs, Terry makes his way to the courthouse and tries explaining to the clerk what happened. The clerk proves unhelpful, insisting there's nothing he can do about the seizure notice since he isn't a public defender. He adds that if Terry's cousin can't make bail, he'll be transferred to state prison with the other inmates because of renovations.
How can I get him out if they took all my money?
Find some more. Is it a drug charge?
The question pushes Terry's frustration to the edge. That's when a woman approaches, relieves the clerk of his duties, and introduces herself as Summer. What happened to Terry on his way to the courthouse was civil asset forfeiture. The officers didn't need to charge him with anything, just suspicion was enough. By law, they could seize the cash on the claim that it was tied to drugs, even without evidence. The cruel twist? The chief of police would get to keep the proceeds and funnel them into discretionary funds, and Summer can't help him get the money back. If Terry tried to fight back for the money, it would drag out for most of the year and cost him twice as much as he lost. Summer admits she could help in other ways, but when a cop strolls in, her voice trails off. She then says they should leave.
Can't talk smack. Chief has more allies than he used to.
The chief lost a civil suit years ago and had to clean up his act. Summer then learns the cousin's name is Michael Simmons. His record shows prior offenses that were later expunged. He got into trouble, but eventually became a cooperating witness in a capital murder case, helping put away a prominent gang member. This is why Terry can't risk letting him get sent to state prison. Michael is a marked man, and once word spreads, he'd be swarmed for being a snitch. With the transfer set for Thursday, Terry admits he can get more bail money. When he asks why she's helping, she shrugs.
So why are you helping me?
Well, it's pretty clear you need it.
Terry thanks her for the help, but decides not to give her his number. Terry, now alone, reaches out to Mr. Liu, his former business partner, for the bail money, and Liu agrees to send it out by Monday. Terry decides to report the cash as stolen, which quickly draws the attention of Officer Lan and Chief Sandy Byrne. Byrne lays out the charges they could bring against him based on the initial police report and warns that Terry recording inside a secured facility under false pretenses won't do him any favors. He's already noticed the phone. Even with proof of where the money came from, Terry's only real path is a long civil battle in court. That's when he changes tack. He doesn't want a fight, he wants a deal. If Byrne can return just $10,000, enough to cover bail, Terry will drop it. After a pause, Byrne agrees to sort it out by Monday. When Terry shows up at the station on Monday, the prison bus is already gone as Byrne had to leave early. Terry jumps on his bike and pushes hard until he catches sight of it, managing to get Michael's attention through the window. Michael brushes it off, saying it's no big deal since his charges were reduced and he'll be in and out soon. But Terry warns him that he's marked, and the weight of that sinks in. Michael starts to realize just how badly he messed up, but Terry tells him to hang on, that he'll have bail posted soon. Terry reaches out to Mr. Liu, but the money's gone. Police had already hit his restaurant, confiscated the safe, and are now circling for drugs. It wasn't what Terry meant to set in motion, but by naming the restaurant in his report, he'd given Byrne and his men the thread they needed to pull a warrant and use it to press even harder. When Terry returns, Summer pulls back. She insists on keeping her job safe and confesses that the moment she went digging, the dirt came back on her. Summer meets him at the back and apologizes, admitting she got caught snooping. She explains she found cases like Mike's, misdemeanor charges with bail set sky high. Each one ended in an adjournment, though she still doesn't know what that really means. What she does know is that something's off, because misdemeanors don't usually sit in jail this long, not in a broke town like this. She's asked someone else for help and can pass Terry a printout, but that's as far as she'll go. She needs her job to keep a roof over her daughter's head. She pulls Terry into a new corner as Elliot, the clerk, comes looking for her, cutting their time short. The urgency is real now. Terry has barely an hour left to come up with either a court order or bail money, and Summer knows a judge won't sign off on time. That leaves him only one option, the cash. Summer promises she'll have the paperwork ready, but she wonders what he's planning to do to actually come up with it. Steve and the chief are going over Terry's background when Terry himself walks up to the station. His record says he has no combat experience, so Byrne pulls out his pistol and decides to deal with him personally. He clears the rest of the boys out for lunch, leaving only himself to face Terry. Byrne tells him that his negotiation to get at least $10,000 back was more than fair, but the fact that Terry even dared to ask pissed him off to begin with. He goes on, exerting his authority and basking in the corruption he has built around himself. Meanwhile, Jessica looks up an acronym attached to Terry's record and finds out exactly what it means. Terry wasn't just another veteran. He was in the Marine Corps martial arts program, the same system that focuses on close quarters hand-to-hand combat. Not only that, but he taught martial arts to the 6th Marine Regiment, and he even has a page about him on Wikipedia. Now Lan realizes they've seriously underestimated him. He asks for backup, then steps outside and warns Byrne to keep his distance.
Let's not do that.
Grabbing hold of Byrne's pistol and discarding it, cartridge ejected, then using Byrne as a shield. He pushes close, pushes Byrne into Lan, then tackles the officer, taking hold of his pistol and going back to Byrne to disarm him again. Terry quickly shuffles between both men. Ultimately, he needs the chief as a shield to proceed inside. Byrne tells the others to put their rifles on safety at Terry's request, since Terry has a gun that could spark a bullet trade if he's attacked first. Once they make it indoors, Terry disconnects the ringing telephone and sits them down.
If this goes fast, it'll go as well as it can, but if you slow me down, it's gonna suck for everybody.
He knows Jessica is on duty, but Byrne denies it until Terry's threat forces him to call her out. She crawls from hiding and, at Terry's order, drops her weapon. Then she cuffs the two officers together using her own restraints. Byrne keeps the keys at his right hip, and with them, Jessica unlocks a compartment and pulls out Terry's money, untouched. A deal's a deal, so he tells her to count out just $10,000. His goal now is a quiet exit, no gunfire, but the back exit still feeds into the front, where others will be waiting. Terry removes the cartridges from her weapon and asks for her cuffs. Playing along, Jessica leads him out front, pretending he's restrained, and shoves him into the back seat of a cruiser. She starts the long drive out, but a cop rolls up from the opposite direction. They flash each other a code for her and keep moving. After parking, Jessica radios the station with no codes, just as Terry demands. He keeps his word and disarms, but pockets the car keys, hiding himself as the cops speed off in the wrong direction. Terry arrives at the courthouse sweaty and anxious, aware he's working on borrowed time. After signing in, he hands Elliot the cash while Summer rushes to get the judge's signature on the paperwork. When Elliot counts the money, he realizes it's over and passes the change back. A receipt is issued, another mailed to the state prison, but the clock has already run out. The courthouse is suddenly swarming with cops. Terry wonders if they'll send him to take his cousin's place and whether his cousin will escape in time. Summer reels at the thought, but Terry insists he hasn't hurt anyone to get this far. Raising his hands in surrender, he's met with a taser before the cuffs snap shut. Terry is in a storage room getting medically examined, Evans overseeing the process. He checks out fine as far as the examiner can tell, and she makes her exit. Terry asks why he isn't already on his way to get a verdict, but Evans says it's because someone else needs to see him first. Evans pulls up at the station to pick up Byrne and advises Terry to hear the man out. On the drive, Byrne admits things went too far. He intimidated the wrong person and wouldn't have if he had known from the start who Terry really was. The chief launches into a long explanation, blaming budget cuts, a shelved town, and the need to find their own income. He says the compartment Jessica once pulled Terry's money from wasn't just storage. Weapons stockpiled there are sold off to other units, sometimes even to nearby towns, each claiming they need them for whatever crisis is breaking loose on their turf. It's all just a long way of saying Byrne wants a de-escalation with Terry. Evans uncuffs Terry so he and Byrne can have the looming conversation. They're parked just outside the hospital where Byrne expects the ambulance to deliver Michael. Word from corrections is that Michael barely made it out of processing alive. Stabbed badly, condition uncertain, only that he was stabbed up pretty good. Terry is riled, but Byrne cuts straight to the point. He lays out the option, take back the rest of his cash and walk away, or face jail time. When Terry protests that he never asked to be bought off, Burns says, "They've even gone as far as buying him the pickup truck he once talked about, and the message is clear. Take the deal, move his business far from town, or else." Terry can't shake the thought that there might be another foul play at hand, but Byrne insists not this time. The document in Terry's hand is proof, meant to be presented to the seller later that night. If he fails to show, the deal dissolves, and option 2 comes knocking. Terry is finally allowed to see Michael, though the visit comes too late. Michael never even made it into the system. His file still reads in transit. There's nothing left to do but honor him. Terry orders the cuffs taken off, and with steady hands, he removes the identification band from Michael's wrist that marked him as prison property. Terry packs up his makeshift camp and heads out with Summer, his stand-in chauffeur. In the mirror, he spots Burns' car trailing, but Summer explains he's only keeping watch, keeping things under control while he angles for sheriff in November. On the road, Summer passes Terry a file, case records that don't line up with the bail schedule. Terry brushes it off, but she presses harder, pointing out that Michael's death fits into something bigger, that someone higher up is pulling the strings. Terry shuts it down. He tells her to stop at the next town for food, just happy to be away from the rot behind them. Terry makes it clear he'd rather Summer stop digging altogether. If she won't comply, then at least she should drop him at the next bus stop and be done with it. By nightfall, Summer lets him off at the dealer's place. Despite what he said earlier, Terry hands her his number, giving permission to text if she chooses. Then he heads inside to deal with the seller. Later that night, Summer wakes to the sound of hushed voices and faint movement in her apartment. In the bathroom, she finds a used syringe and a fresh puncture mark on the inside of her elbow. Panic sets in, and she reaches for her phone to call the police until her eyes land on a cop sticker slapped to her fridge. Already fading out, she dials Terry instead, breathless as she tells him she's in trouble. Terry returns to help Summer and finds her under the shower. Back in bed, she refuses to go to the hospital, neither in this town nor another, because it would go on her record and cost her custody of her daughter. Terry insists they should go anyway, since she has no idea what they injected her with or how lethal it might be. But she's worried that it could also destroy her chance of taking the bar. She tells Terry how she became a felon after pawning her father-in-law's lawnmower to feed her addiction. She was charged with grand theft, and her husband filed for divorce, leaving with their daughter. With no money for a lawyer, she stood alone before the judge, who took pity and gave her a chance. She stayed clean, eventually working her way into the court system. She decides it's time to let Terry grieve, promising to shut down her investigation. She'll go to work and pretend none of this happened. Terry only says that sometimes it's okay to take fuel from the fire. But when she shows up at work, the judge orders a urine test, acting on information he claims needs to be straightened out. Meanwhile, Terry is already on his way out of town when Lan pulls him over. He's ordered to kill the ignition and toss his keys out the driver's side window. Terry stays calm, explaining he only came back because of Summer's emergency but is leaving now. Lan doesn't care. The deal is broken as Terry wasn't supposed to return. Now Lan is threatening him with charges, assault on officers, vandalism of the station, and even theft of his own money. As Lan drove up, the sirens on his cruiser went off, and he tells Terry that once they did, the dash cam started recording automatically. Then Lan tosses a gun into Terry's car and fires, but Terry tackles him, wrestles the weapon away, and tases the cop before escaping through the fields. Summer lingers outside her daughter's school when a cruiser rolls up. Meanwhile, Terry drives the truck deep into a swamp before ditching it under a bridge. He's injured, but he drags himself onto the walkway and keeps moving. On the phone with Summer, he learns she's been warned to leave town and is already packing. Terry has a place where they can meet, but with the truck abandoned, they'll need her Volvo to get there. Terry regroups with Summer at Liu's restaurant, where Liu, once a medic in the Korean War, does his best to patch him up. He sets 2 bowls of soup on the table and leaves them to themselves. Terry presses for details, convinced there's leverage in all this. If the cops are keeping things this quiet when there should be a cavalry hunting him down, then he needs to know. All Summer has pieced together is that the officers are manipulating defendants' jail time, though she still doesn't know why. What she's found in public records isn't strong enough to stir the media. The judge seems tangled in it too, though maybe not on the corrupt side. He tends to dismiss cases once they reach his bench.
These officers are quiet because they're vulnerable. Whatever window we have, I guarantee you they're closing.
He takes out cash to put on Lou's payroll as he makes Summer understand that he's now tied to investigation whether he likes it or not. Summer might get caught in a deal or she might not. Terry doesn't know. She apologizes for dragging him back, but he's already decided he needs to avenge Mike's death. When he first left, it was about self-preservation, something he'd been forcing himself to accept as okay, but now that excuse won't hold. Summer keeps the name of the insider cop to herself, so Terry gives him the codename Serpico. Together, they corner Elliot, who wants nothing to do with any of it. Ignorance, as far as he's concerned, is bliss, but when Summer calls him a tumor, it's enough to push him into pointing her toward the civil case. That case had once put real pressure on the police, and things have stayed quiet ever since. Now Summer realizes the lawsuit didn't turn things around. It flipped everything upside down. Next on their radar is the judge, who shows no interest in putting up a fight. Terry wears a mask and Summer stays hidden, but the judge insists she step forward as she needs to hear this too. When she does, he explains he wasn't working against her. He was trying to protect her from something worse. He already knows who Terry is, so the veteran pulls off the mask and demands to know why his cousin is dead if the judge truly has empathy. The judge lays it out, a cover-up designed to avoid new transparency measures imposed after a legal settlement nearly bankrupted the town. Byrne turned to civil forfeitures to keep the police department alive. People were being held for 90 days on misdemeanors, long enough to prevent public defenders from requesting dashcam footage before the retention window expired. After 90 days, anything not subpoenaed is automatically deleted. That footage is stored at the courthouse, part of the settlement terms. And according to the judge, Mike's dashcam recording contained enough to get the town sued all over again. Terry has heard enough and starts tying up the judge, but Summer notices he's overdosed on his late wife's medication and is slipping away. They hide behind the foliage as police arrive. Summer believes the judge will pull through, but she's teary. Terry tells her that if she needs to back off for her daughter's sake, he'll understand, but her baby girl is the reason she keeps pushing through, because when she gets custody, she needs her kid to know she's not a coward. They need to get hold of the drives with those recordings, and Summer knows they're stored in the basement. They sneak into the courthouse, but they're not alone, so they stay quiet and hidden until the third party leaves. When they resume their search, they find the place doused in gasoline, and a fire sparks. Summer's bottle of coconut water keeps the flames from licking at them, but the perpetrators will be expecting a fire outbreak, leaving the duo little time. Summer gets the bright idea to grab the SD cards instead of the hard drives. The ones on hand cover the past week, and Mike's recordings should be among them. Before they leave, Terry restarts the fire, knowing the cops will double-check. Sure enough, they do, and believe the place is clear. Then Summer tells Terry to go on without her, as she needs to retrieve something else. They agree to meet in the alley. Terry makes it out barefoot and back to the car while Summer stays inside the building. She's after her urine test, still in their custody, but gets caught. Terry watches as they force her into a vehicle and immediately gives chase. He rams a cruiser, lunges through the window, and wrestles the cop out, subduing him and slapping on the cuffs. The cop doesn't know where they're taking Summer. Get me someone who knows. Land comes through on the comm and arranges a swap. Summer for the cards at Rebel Ridge. He wants it that night, but Terry insists the exchange will happen by morning. While Lan and an armed police contingent wait at the site, Terry calls Byrne and engages him in a long talk. The cops believe they've spotted him at the bridge, but when Evan arrives, it's just their missing cop tied up. Outside, Terry tears into the station's wall with the help of a truck, aiming for the location of the cache. Meanwhile, Summer remains in Lan's custody. Byrne steps into the compartment with a gun, but Terry sneaks up behind him and fires, knocking Byrne's pistol away. Jessica tries to apprehend Terry, but he recognizes her as Summer's insider. When Byrne interrupts their conversation, Terry fires again, sending him down. Cops swarm in, and Jessica reveals she's not the insider as she holds Terry at gunpoint, the same one he had handed over, trusting her blindly. She doesn't want anyone hurt and is ready to follow procedure. Jessica hands the cards to Lan, who destroys them and reveals that he's injected Summer with drugs and she's at risk of overdosing. Evan sees that things have gone too far and tries to intervene, but Byrne steps out and shoots him in the leg. Chaos erupts between the officers, and Terry seizes the opportunity to slip away with the wounded man, avoiding gunfire. Marston instructs Terry to activate a police cruiser's siren, saving the last 3 minutes of dashcam footage, and guides him through administering Narcan to Summer. When the field fills with grenade smoke, Terry switches to close quarters combat, taking down the cops. Lan, in particular, gets roughed up badly. Terry then finds Lan's cruiser, starts the recording, administers Narcan to Summer, and hauls Evan into the car. Lan tries to shoot, but the rifle is empty. He clings to the moving vehicle, trying to get inside, until Summer stirs awake and pushes him off. The three flee in the cruiser, with police in pursuit, slowed by a flat tire. Ordered to perform a PIT maneuver, Jessica instead takes out Byrne's vehicle. The remaining officers escort them to the hospital and report that state police are en route. Jessica detains Byrne while Marston and Summer are admitted. Terry then retrieves and sits with the incriminating dashcam footage in hand, waiting. It's a wrap for this one. Keep watching for more. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.